I'm a DJ boy, going to Dcentral, making NFT from the DeFi, being crypto poor but JPEG rich.
How's it going, everybody? How's everybody doing? Great to see everybody. My name's Elijah Kuhaupt. I'm a contributor for the TL, which we put together the NFT gallery and the mezzanine, and love seeing artists thriving and displayed when they wouldn't have been necessarily displayed before. This is my friend Andy Griffiths, who's a CMO at CULT&RAIN. You want to talk a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Thanks for having me. We're CULT&RAIN. We're a luxury fashion brand born from Web3. We all come from kind of like Web2 fashion backgrounds. We work for many different companies from Maison Margiela, Hermenegildo Zegna, Diesel, Fear of God, and so forth. And we just figured that there was a different way of presenting fashion within the Web3 space. And so we tie luxury physical products, sneakers and apparel, tied to digital assets, be it digital collections or NFTs.
Sweet. We're going to keep talking about that, but let's introduce the rest of the panel. This is my friend Max Kulchinsky.
Hi.
You want to say a little bit about what you do?
What's up, everybody? I am an artist and curator from New York, and very much here to bring art friends together and exhibit works IRL and do lots of fun things. And yeah, that's a brief synopsis, I would say, of what I'm up to.
He does a lot more than that, but we'll get into it. Toby Lasso, my friends, partner in Nocturnal management company. You want to talk about a little bit what you do? Because it's not just that.
For sure. GM, everybody, as you can see, there's a very accurate representation of who I am up on the board. And yeah, I'm huge Web3 fan, lucky to be the manager of a few NFT artists, and alongside my co-founder Matt, creator of the first Web2 management company with a Web3 arm, sort of pulling those two things together.
And finally, my friend Matt Morgan, another partner at Nocturnal.
Hi everybody. I work with Toby, and for the last 15 years have predominantly been in the Web2 space of talent management and entertainment, whether that's like record labels in music and like just creative agencies, and we're trying to sort of mash these worlds together and figure out how we sort of add different arms to people's like creative ability and the way that they tell stories and the way that the brands get involved in that as well. So yeah, I imagine we'll get into that in a bit.
Sweet. So I know a lot of you here are NFT collectors as well as just involved in bringing NFTs out. So as with having NFT projects, everybody is involved in an NFT project. How has that made you a different collector? How has that influenced your collecting of other NFTs by building some yourself? Andy, you want to start?
I think for me, it really goes back down to the artist, like who they are, the value proposition they have, their work, their belief system, what they kind of like hold really close to their art. And so I really gravitate towards story. So as long as there's a really good story behind the work or the person, like that's what I'm really interested in, because the art is the art, and assume that it's always going to be really great art. I think for what makes the difference for me is like people's backgrounds, their stories, the narrative, the journey, how they got to where they are, why they're in this space in the first place or second place. And so I think that's really interesting for me, and that's where I go. It's like, okay, what's your story? Who are you, and what's your story?
Sweet. Max, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm very well aligned on that one. I think a lot of this market and a lot of what we're all here for is really, about stories. It's really about the people. And for me, especially collecting art or projects that are really centered around art, I think it's so much about that feeling you have when something just really resonates with you and you can relate it to your own experience. And I really think that's the most important part of this whole thing is that human connection and relation and yeah, it's a really beautiful thing when you could take it from, the timeline or from OpenSea or whatever into like hanging out with people that become your closest friends,
Yeah, that's been everything for me too. So, Toby?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of those two things. Being a part of launching a few NFT projects. The first one I helped launch was Letters by Vinny Hager, surrounded around Vinny's very idealistic and interesting iconography style of 1,000 pieces. It was beautiful to build that community from the ground up, whether that was starting at 0 people in a Discord and moving that to 5,000, 6,000 and having every single person in that Discord have value to add, and then watching a community grow in front of your eyes of people who is now a 9-month-old community, and people have gone on to do amazing things from being, from meeting in that community. There's people who've gone on to make other projects. There's other artists who've, come out of their shell 6 months into the community and said, oh, actually, I've been making art for 3 years or 4 years. I've never shown it to anyone. And so it's been really beautiful for me on the community side of things to see that blossom, because we all need places to feel safe, to make friends, and for a lot of people, myself included, it's not very easy to make friends or have friends that are, or find friends that are like-minded. So if we can, have these entry points that make it easy to find like-minded people, make it easy to find developers, make it easy to find, just regular friends, then you can go on to do pretty much whatever you'd like to do. So the community aspect for me is the peak.
Sweet. Matt, you have anything to?
Yeah, I think like the storytelling and the community side of art and all of these things in general is like probably the most interesting thing for me, because it always draws back to the fact that we are human, and all the things around the ways that these things like are communicated and everything is like, it comes back to the emotions that we have and the language that we use, and communities especially. It's like the way that art and NFTs are used, it's like almost a communication of the cultural identity that we want to represent. And it's like being a part of a community. It might be the language that we use on Twitter that represents that identity. It might be the badge of that community, of the actual physical art that you hang on your wall, or these things. So I think the storytelling aspect of how we communicate our own identities through these things is such an important thing.
And I mean, sorry to hop in there, but the storytelling aspect is key, and it's been happening throughout the art world forever. And it's now just easier to, it's more easily adapted in NFTs. I tell a story a lot, and if you look at the fine art world and you look at people who spend millions and millions of dollars buying paintings from Christie's, people buy things. Let's say you love Van Gogh's Starry Night, and it comes up on the docket, and you're a billionaire, and you sit there and you put your paddle up and up and up and up, and then you're bidding on someone, trying to beat someone on the phone in Saudi Arabia for it, and the hammer goes down, you've paid X amount for it, and you now own it, and you've always wanted that painting, and you worked hard enough to be able to afford it, and you own it now. What are you going to do with that? You're going to go home, you're going to put it up on your wall, and you're going to invite people around at a dinner party and tell the story about how you got it. This is my piece of art on the wall, and it means this much to me because it was one of the first paintings I ever saw, and I had to go away, and I had to work hard, and I had to make it, and I had to... and now I own it and it stands here. And that's what NFTs are, just in a different way. People wear their NFTs like a badge of honor. My cool cat I have up here, I love to death because I love the artist behind Cool Cats. I love the story of how I got into Cool Cats. I'm telling people all of these things because it's what makes me me. It's what means that I won't sell it. And so that storytelling aspect can't be, it's different for every single person, but it can't be understated at any point.
And that is the utility.
Amen. Cool. So a lot of you guys are really unique in, well, all of us are doxed, or like mostly doxed, and but we're out here involved in NFT brands, not necessarily projects. I mean, projects definitely, but building brands in the NFT space. So a couple of you guys are really unique in having digital and physical product aligned with your entire ethos of your mission statement and your brand. So why physical product, and why tie in physical product? And Toby, for some that don't know, is involved in the Weather Report, which is also kind of a really early Web3 brand, not necessarily a project, but really influenced by 2000s streetwear and skateboarding, and really doing a lot of capsule collections and collaborations with other brands in the space and in like the Web2 streetwear space. So bringing in physical product there. But Andy, do you want to lead on that?
I mean, people would just want to wear cool shit. Like, that's pretty much the basic kind of fundamentals of it. We take a lot of cues from kind of late 90s, early 2000s streetwear around collecting, around drops, around scarcity. But it really comes down to a couple of things. And I think the physical aspect of what we're producing as part of CULT&RAIN, we're trying to do it at a luxurious level, right? So we're not that interested in making more t-shirts, more hoodies. We're actually trying to make the most badass sneakers and jackets and apparel that we can. Our sneakers are made in the same factory as Balenciaga, Gucci, Dior, and Louis Vuitton. So it's, part of it is a point of difference in the market that because of just the fashion backgrounds that we have, we've been able to tap into these factories that are really kind of off limits, and you can't just walk in there, and certainly as a startup, typically you can't go in there and just like, hey, can you make me, 2,000 pairs of sneakers? But we've been able to do it just because of the relationships that we've cultivated in the past, 20 plus years. I think the cues around collecting are really important. I think the cues around just luxury goods and a scarcity model, and now they have inherent value, not just because it's a physical item that you can wear, but it goes back to what we were just talking about, badging. This is no different than kind of late 90s with big Tommy Hilfiger logos and badging on your sweater or your t-shirt. These are kind of identity cues. These are codes around identity, community, tribes that were really relevant back there. They're just now manifesting themselves in a completely new digital realm because there's inherent value because it's tied to the blockchain and it has value. So once you tie the physical component to that, we just think that there's a totally different way of thinking about fashion. The other part, which one of the reasons why we started CULT&RAIN in the first place, is we were really tired of the fashion system. We were tired of sitting in meetings for like the last 20 years talking about the same things we've been talking about like time and time again. The amount of wastage, the amount of that ends up in collections that just end up in landfill, like seasons after seasons, collections, samples, and ends up in landfill. So the model around CULT&RAIN was really around made to order and reducing our footprint and being accountable and responsible for that by making exactly what we sell. So there are plenty of fashion brands out there that really that really have a responsibility that they don't adhere to. And so once you tie the physical component to that with the model, we feel that we're doing our part. We can always do better. And we're just one cog in a massive wheel of change and sustainability and more so accountability. And that's kind of where we really kind of sit and what we think about a lot.
Sweet. So how do you add value to that digital token and make people want to rock that and represent that digital token in their social media and online? Because you'll always need to have some sort of value for that digital token for people to want to keep rocking with you. So why the digital token?
I mean, it's as part of our Genesis drop, it's really your ticket and your token to the world of CULT&RAIN. We are about to launch our metaverse in July. So it's completely in-house built metaverse that you get another access point to our world, to our thinking. You get access and utility tied to not just the brands and the products that we're making, but also there's a ton of utility and value associated with the artists that we're working with. So one of the artists from the Genesis drop is Sean Williams. And Sean was awesome. And he was like, okay, he was the most generous with all of that utility. You get free NFTs from Sean Williams. You get free physical from Sean Williams. You get a Zoom call with Sean Williams. You get access that you just can't get elsewhere. And so that money can't buy experience and just access, utility, value inherently just not comes back to CULT&RAIN and what we're going to offer up. But it also means that the artists and the collaborations and the work that we're going to do continues to expand that into the artist world as well. And I think that's really interesting. That's the beauty of collaboration, right? It's not just about the brand winning and doing something that's unique. It's about the access that the value that the user can get with all of the artists that and products that we're making.
Cool. Well, shout out Sean Williams wherever the camera is. Cool. Toby, do you want to talk a little bit about building a Web3 brand?
Yeah, for sure. I think that it's all about culture, right? NFTs are a huge part of our culture. It's part of, human growth and evolution, and tying back into the Web 2 aspect of culture. Streetwear is a huge part of culture. It's a huge part of how people express themselves and show their identity. Digital identity, NFTs, exactly the same way. So trying to find the right way to marry those two things up while remaining relevant and cool and different, while combining the aspect of being able to join a community where other people feel the same way you do. The merchandising component is super important. I think Web3 is fantastic, and if you're a Web3 only brand, you're going to have a hard time, right? This is still an extremely small space, extremely small amount of people who are engaging with this stuff. You look at the OpenSea numbers, you look at everything else, there are not that many wallets who buy NFTs yet. But what we do know, everyone in this room, or people who have touched an NFT, or is what will come in the future, right? We're aware, we've seen the technology, we see where it's going, we want to be a part of things, and I think it's important to not negate the Web 2 side of things. It's what every single person in here is wearing clothing, right, of some kind, and to just be like, well, we're only going to do stuff in Web 3 and that's it, and you're going to have to ebb and flow with the ups and downs of the ETH prices. You're going to have to ebb and flow with Sol turning off and crashing. And if you're a Web3 only brand and everyone is pissed off at NFTs in this mini bear market, then everyone's going to be pissed off at you. But if you have a secondary flow of income or a different way to make sure that you're, still pulling in interest or culture, maybe you do events, maybe you have clothing, maybe you can do a whole bunch of different things. You need to make sure that we're tying these worlds together and not alienating them. Web3 is an extremely good way to procure enough money to be able to do it all, right? It's like the 21st century version. Well, Kickstarter came out in the 21st century. It's like the new Kickstarter, right? You go, hey, we've got this idea, we've got these tokens that are coming out, we want to raise some seed capital rather than having to go to, a huge bank that probably won't give us the loan. And we want the people in the community who've signed up to do it with us to be along for that journey and reap the rewards and benefits of saying, I was here early and I paid this much for it. Yeah, I see rather like a 10,000 PFP collection as like stocks and shares. I'm like, you have a share in this company, you have 1 or 2 shares in this company, and we believe in the short-term, long-term, medium-term vision of what they can do. But to be a Web3 only brand, I think, is to shoot yourself primarily in both kneecaps.
Yeah. So the PFP project is really just kind of a step on the journey, a product, just like a shirt or a shoe or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it comes with the utility stuff that CULT&RAIN are talking about, and there's ways to reward people. But you get to use it as a social media profile picture. You get to feel like you're a part of a community of a small amount of people, 10,000 people, 1,000 people, whatever it is. And then you also get to share in the adventure of being rewarded for being early. These are what people see as pictures, and I can just right-click save that. But what you get from the token, because it's a non-fungible token, is that access, that earliness, that stock. I mean, you could buy stock in Tesla, but it doesn't look like a cool cat,
Sweet. Yeah, that's very true. Matt, do you want to talk a little bit about Web3 management and how that kind of differs from what you've seen in the last 15 years of managing musicians?
Yeah, for sure. And I think going back to, just to touch on it quickly, going back to like the physical side of like having a physical product or something that's attached to these projects is so important for me for the longevity of NFTs, because like the barrier to entry for people that aren't necessarily going to be sat in this room, like the mass adoption of these things is like, it's understanding. Like no one understands, like when I go to parties and people are like, what are NFTs? Like there's a million ways that I could answer that, but at the end of the day, if someone gets something physical, if someone gets a product from the thing that will like get them into the space, then that's going to be a big key in unlocking the sort of way that people actually understand this space. But like the traditional like talent management and like I come from record labels and like I've managed film writer directors and YouTubers and all of these things, and the thing that links them all together, just the same as NFTs and art and everything, is the community side of everything. That the fact that like everything we do, like every single technological advancement comes with the fact that it's driven by humans, and it like everything shifts, but at the same time, the emotion, the language, the things that like all these humans are driving, like they're never ever going to change. So often when we approach anything, whether it's Web 2 or Web 3, we take a step back and we say, like, why are we doing this? What is the audience? Like, what do the audience want? We're not just going to jump into a project and say, hey, we're going to release this thing for this much money and you get this utility and all of these things. It's like, what are the foundations of community that people actually care about? Like, what are the things that people are talking about? What are the inside jokes that people are making that no one else gets? And those are the things that like, they pull together Web 2 and Web 3. Like, I've sat in boardrooms with Pepsi for the last like 10 years and we talk about the idea of demographics and targeting and things, and at the end of a meeting with some of the smartest people in the world, like you come out and like the answer of targeting is a 24 to 28-year-old male. And like if I'm on a train and I see another 28-year-old male, I don't like go up and want to hug him. I'm just gonna like, but if someone's wearing an England top, I'm gonna bash my hands and start singing like England songs. Like, that's a tribe, and people are linked together through these communities. And I think taking a step back and realizing that you shouldn't jump into projects before understanding who you are, who the project like is for, basically. And I think that's the thing that will link Web 2 and Web 3 together.
Cool.
The Web3 management stuff is super exciting because you give these artists that we're representing an opportunity to properly sell their work. And I'll use, for example, we represent a photographer who's extremely talented, and he's on, he's on like the meteoric rise to being the next celebrity photographer. He took the picture of Robert Pattinson for the latest GQ World cover, which is just an amazing photograph. And he was paid for it. But he sat down and told us that he wanted to do it a certain way, and needed £8,000 lights to make sure that it could be taken in the way that he wanted it to be taken. And so that came directly out of the budget he was paid to do it, because he was not going to take that photograph unless he was taking the right photograph, because he bleeds for his art in that way. And so the photograph came out great, and he was down $8,000 from being paid to begin with because he needed these lights to do it. Now, if you can take someone as talented as Jack and introduce him to the NFT community and to those collectors of people who care about photographs like this. It's not going to be that photograph because GQ owns that photograph, but there's tons of other photographs he has that he just sit on his camera roll. If we can introduce him into the NFT space and into the collectors who want to collect that kind of artwork, maybe it's just so they can have the token, maybe it's so they can blow it up and put it on their wall, maybe it's because they just want to own it. He can finally get paid the right amount of money for his work. He could put it up on an auction site. He could get, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 for it. Whereas, you can have people who the last 15 years have had millions of Instagram followers and yet can't sell a single photograph to anyone because it doesn't translate to money. It doesn't translate to ownership. And these photographers have been going out for the last 15, 20 years and taking the most amazing photographs and just throwing it away to Facebook. They give it to Facebook by posting it on Instagram. And that's how they, get more jobs. That's how they get more work. But they should be getting paid for that photograph, right? They own that. They can still put it on Instagram, but that someone should be able to own it. They should be able to reap the rewards and the benefits from that, and not have to live on the breadline because they bleed for their art.
Cool. Max, coming from a similar background, does that kind of frustrate you that some of this Web3 stuff wasn't around 5 years ago, 4 years ago when you were head on into music management?
For sure, but I try to look at it a bit more optimistically and positively. Like, I'm grateful we're here now, stepping a bit away from the music world and being fully immersed in art has sort of shifted perspectives on a lot of those things. But, there are obviously musicians doing great things with the tech and in the scene. And to what Toby said, I think, especially digital artists and generative artists especially, like, this is the first time that those categories are even taken seriously or people are actually interested in discussing and looking at that sort of work in a more fine art context. So that's really exciting, aside from the market aspect and people, really having an opportunity to make a living without doing client work or taking on projects they don't want to do, or becoming, creative directors or art directors at terrible agencies and record labels and whatever. So yeah, I think the independence, the sort of shift of what Toby was talking about in terms of ownership and the accessibility to people who actually care, that makes me feel really optimistic, even in a bear market, and even times where my pieces aren't selling, or I have friends that are struggling. I think it's still up. Line go up.
Truth. You guys, it's been awesome. Thank you so much for coming out. Can you guys all just say a little bit about what you've got coming up? Andy?
We have our Metaverse launch in London on July 20th. It's in a really incredible building. It's in a building called the Outer Net. It's in Tottenham Court Road, central London. It's a $1 billion building. Has 16K digital screens on the ceiling and 4 walls. And we're producing kind of a metaverse immersive experience party that will be live, obviously in the metaverse, but will be live in real life at the same time. So everything will be mirrored together, which is really exciting. We're also developing something called Culture Shop. It's called Culture World. Our metaverse is called Culture World. Inside that, you have Culture Shop, and so this will be one of the very first expressions that you'll be able to buy physical products inside our metaverse. So we're working through that.
Love to see it. Max?
I have a piece. It's a painting that will be showing on a billboard in Times Square during NFT NYC. So if you're in New York, come check it out. It's probably one of my favorite things I've ever made. Really proud of it. I'll be speaking at the conference. I don't know when yet, so stay posted on my Twitter and such. The art collective that you and I work on for the TL is exhibiting at Zoratopia at NFT NYC. So check out Zora, check out Latasha, and find the RSVP. We'll be there. We're doing some fun stuff.
Drop on Nifty Gateway in a few weeks.
Yes, that's the alpha. You guys are hearing it first. For the TL is doing our first drop on Nifty Gateway. It's the first time I'm curating on that platform. Very exciting. The real alpha is I'm doing a piece that will be $1, and there will be 100 editions. So I think we have probably like 50 people in here. Each of you should get one. It's $1. What else? We got a bunch of shows. Stay posted. Stay golden.
Toby?
We are continuing to sign more artists. Weather Report is throwing an event during NFT NYC. Vinny is doing a mural during NFT NYC. A ton of amazing people and artists will be together in that city at the end of this month. And if you aren't planning on going, I would plan on going. I think it's going to be really special for a multitude of different reasons. I don't want to also say too much. I plan to, drink lattes and eat avocado toast and watch Star Trek as much as I can, and then do whatever I can. But also, I do really recommend tapping in with Max, one of the most amazing people that I have managed to make friends I've managed to make in this space, and has an awful lot to say about a whole host of amazing things. One of the finest curators I've ever met.
Agreed. Biased, but agreed. Matt?
So yeah, we're just going to be building out our roster of talent, whether that's from Web 2 originally or Web 3. We have such a range of creative talent, whether that's like photographers, painters, film writers and directors, and we're just going to continue that exploration of figuring out how we tell beautiful stories with beautiful creative people, and doing great stuff with good people, and I think I don't want to say too much, but the release of some exciting things is imminent, and thank you all for
one last thing. So after this, I think we're all going to go hang out at the gallery that we have upstairs. It's there's this really large screen. It's like the immersive screen on the 3rd floor. There's some really, really cool art. If you want to come say hi, ask questions, whatever, pull up.
Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for coming out.
Appreciate you.
Thank you all.